It's Checkpoint on ENCA and ETV. I'm Ngepile Mabuse. Terrifying school break-ins are the focus this week. Shot, robbed, and left for dead.
They shot me on my arm. Secondly, they shot me on the body. I think with few inches next to my heart.
We'll bring you the full details right after this. Pre-lockdown, Khayelitsha in the Western Cape had become a provincial hotspot of school burglaries. The lack of effective security measures such as gates, guards, proper fencing and CCTV cameras has turned institutions of learning in that area into soft targets for criminals. Sungani Vacha and Samit Moore spoke to teachers who were collateral damage in these classroom attacks. They still live in fear and have requested we conceal their identities.
The Khayelitsha schools have been all experienced the break-in. And I think each school has experienced more than 5 times. All the case has been reported, all the incident has been reported to police stations. Not even one has been apprehended.
Lovoya Duma, not his real name, has lived in Khayelitsha all his life. His love for education and community is what led him to the teaching profession. He's been an educator for more than 15 years and never thought he'd one day be injured while on duty. It was on a Friday in August 2019 when these 3 men casually walked into the school's admin block where Duma was attending to a distraught parent who'd come to report a rape case on school grounds.
Immediately, they just put the gun straight to me and they forced me to hand out the safe keys and give the laptops to them. I've tried to explain the school process, how does it works, because definitely I don't keep whatever they are demanding at that moment. So they thought I'm playing games. Immediately, they started to shoot at me.
Duma was shot twice.
They shot me on my arm. Secondly, they shot me on the body. I think with few inches next to my heart. And luckily, the bullet went through.
He lay bleeding on the floor. The men made off with 2 flat-screen TV sets, his cell phone, wallet, jacket, laptop and car. He managed to scream for help and was driven to hospital.
The police came to the hospital. The case, it was opened immediately.
Despite the crime having been caught on camera, it remains unsolved.
I've never even get a call, somebody who ask how far with the case, who's police relevant. There's nothing of that nature.
Aviwe Petu, also not his real name, depends on this walking stick for balance and comfort. In 2018, he was shot at school following an extended afternoon training session.
Emveni kwalo training, xa selebemkile bephumile, kweqe iintwana zintlanu ziphethe imipu, enye yazo yaqalisa ukudubula. Zabathethe nto, wavele nje lo wayephambili baleka phambili, wabese ekhupha umpu, waqalisa ukudubula.
There was no security guard on the premises.
Kwizikolo zonke, uninzi lwazo azikho i-security. Abekho nogada. Izithonga endisazikhumbulayo zintlanu. Kodwa ke ndabethwa mna sesinye ibullet enye. Zandiphosa ezinye. Kuba bathi xa bevela bafika baqalisa udubula. Ngelo xesha ke ngoku mna into endandiyenza qha kuphela ndandithandaza ngaphakathi.
Petu suspects something startled the robbers because they fled the scene with nothing.
Ibullet lena yangena apha kwi-right leg. Bathi ugqirha idamage i-foot nerve. Kodwa ke ngoku esibhedlele mna zaba ndigcine ixesha lide. Ndakhawuleza msinyane ndakhululwa. Bandiphazama ndalala nje ubusuku obunye esibhedlele. Ngelaa xesha sandiopereyithwe, bandifaka nje isamente, bendingakwazi ukuhamba. Yonke into ndincedwa zii-family members zam, bendenzela yonke into. Mna ndiyakwazi ukuzenzela nto. Kunzima ukuhamba ndithi kwintlungu. It affected me badly. Because even nangoku as bakwangoku yanandiyayisanda ndehlela loo nto leyo. Rhoqo xa ndiphupha yonke le incident. Ndinama-nightmares. Ndiphupha ingathi ke ngoku bayondigqibezela. Rhoqo as a result kwaba nzima into yobana ndingabuyela kwaphaa kule ndawo bendilimelele kuyo.
Like Duma, Petu also opened a case at the police station. His case is 3 years old, yet no arrests have been made.
There's no progress at all. Even now they stopped even to inform me because long ago they used to give me ongoing feedback, but now there's no anything. South African Police Services is a bit challenged, especially when it comes to school cases. They don't take them serious at all.
Next, Satu says teachers injured on duty are treated appallingly by the department.
Because if these cases are not solved, of teachers being maimed, teachers being hurt, it means that the perpetrators out there feels that you can attack a teacher and nothing happens to you.
Chairperson of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, SATU, in the Western Cape, Jonathan Ruston, says 1,394 cases of crime were reported in 2019 alone, and none have been solved.
Because if these cases are not solved, of teachers being maimed, teachers being hurt, it means that the perpetrators out there feels that you can attack a teacher and nothing happens to you.
Ruston says the attitude of the Western Cape Education Department leaves much to be desired.
There are certain basic things that need to happen, like fencing should be one priority. Where schools are identified as hotspots, besides the volunteers, let's appoint guards at those schools. Guards who are properly trained, who are able to protect those coming in, those inside, and those exit.
Worse still is how the department treats employees like Duma and Petu after they've been injured on the job, complains Ruston.
Some educators who are not with medical aid have to struggle through the public health system and pay out of their own pockets without the claims being submitted to the Department of Employment and Labour, and our teachers suffering. And once they have recovered, there is no empathy in terms of their reintegration into the teaching profession. Many of them are told to go back to the same places where they have been traumatized, injured in the recent past.
San negotiator ne department ne trade union babandizamele kwenye indawo esafe. Ba kulaa ndawo leyana andifilishi safe as apha bantu babengekabanjwa. Ngoku ndicinga ke into yobana ke ngoku xa benondibona again phezu koba beyazi into because bona ngexesha babendishiya becinga uba bawugqibile umsebenzi wabo. Kwakwaba nzima sinegotiator ne-department bengayiva yonke icase yam, bengayi-understand icase yam, bengayiqondi i-post traumatic stress endikuyo. Kuba even alapha mos umzekelo kufuneke ndiqiniseke into yobana noba ndihleli endlini Ndisoloke nditsikile, andisoloke andisahambi kunzima kwiindawo ezipublic. Funeka ndicontrole suspicious, akho kutrusta. Once umuntu ndibone ngathi ufanana, loo nto leyo ibiza into kuthiwa zii-flashbacks.
The department does provide psychological assistance for the staff, but in many cases it's an event. It's not a sustainable process to actually heal. But the person who has actually undergone this particular traumatic event takes years to recover from that event, and the family as well. So if you do not receive the proper support, the proper counseling, all the mechanisms that your employer and your family can give you, it is very difficult for you to return to that same place where that horrific incident had taken place.
Funisile Giyama is a resident of Khayelitsha. Worried about the high levels of crime in his neighborhood, he joined Bambanani, a community volunteer group. Bambanani was formed to help lower levels of crime by patrolling the streets of Khayelitsha. Giyama is now part of the Department of Community Safety and the Western Cape Education Department's Neighborhood Watch, which focuses specifically on school crimes.
Saxelelwa ngokusebenzisana kunye nesipolisa ukwenza into yoba zonke izinto ezenzeka apha elokishini sizithumele emapoliseni easy.
It soon dawned on them that this would not be an easy task.
Ngamavolunteer even wona la sebenza nawo angamapolisa.
Usho njani ukuthi amapolisa that you are working with amavolunteer, are they not amapolisa who are working for a police station?
No, akekho registered, akekho permanent, noba ngendilithi ngamavolunteer, because wona uqala aya volunteer pha STC for ntoba makaqeshwe abe ngamapolisa.
They were given these yellow reflector jackets and tasked with patrolling the schools and signing people in and out of the gates. Giyama claims arrests they made were futile because suspects would be released soon after.
Kasibambile thina sibuza ba hayibo kwenzeka ntoni lithi ke ngoku ipolice nansi ka amapolisa la sihamba nawo okanye commander lesihamba nawo bona umsebenzi wabo kubamba umuntu ugqiba kwabubamba umuntu bomfaka eseleni umfaka kwabeseleni udilishana nezinye department nothi nabo bona kubamba sifake eseleni so ithi ke ngolonto nathi siyafana nabo nathi siyabamba sifake eseleni because ubamba ngoku namhlanje kwivekeza umuntu ujikeleza sekuthiwa ke ijustice ke ngokulenza lonto le.
A reality that has left many volunteers feeling uneasy.
Noba sowuhamba udibana naye uzavela ukhombe uba nanku lo wayendenze lona because kaloku soyike nokoyika but sibe nela time ntoba xa sidibene sisonke thina akazusasenzayo.
SATU chairperson Jonathan Russon says underfunding is working against any efforts to provide a safer school environment.
We've raised this consistently to say that the budget that is allocated for the entire Western Cape does not cater for the proper security needs of the schools.
Coming up, community efforts to prevent school robberies are under-resourced, while the Department of Education in the Western Cape says it has no money to beef up security.
Unfortunately, our budget is not endless, and we do have certain constraints, in terms of finances within our organization. As a province, our budget has been consistently cut over the past few years.
In 2019, the Western Cape Department of Education pledged 1.5 million rand for security upgrades at schools in Khayelitsha. The money was split between 64 schools, meaning each school received around 25,000 rand. A wholly inadequate amount to address current needs, argues Luvuyo Duma.
Principals of Khayelitsha met and they've tried to check which service provider they can assist them in installing the access control Out of that processes, they find, I think there were 4 or 5 that were submitted their proposal. Out of that 5, they've only chosen 1. And the company, the last one, it was 29,000 some odds. Bear in mind that the department gave the schools 25,000. So that means the schools had to pay the difference of 5,000 and some odds. You see now, that was even not enough for the access control. That was meant for 4 cameras. Look at the capacity of the school, the building on its own, what the 4 cameras can do. And secondly, they've given 2 radios where people inside they can communicate. You see, really, it tells you. And also they've offered 1 screen monitor where you can check the footage. That's all. So that on its own, that it needs to be beefed up.
Duma says they've exhausted all avenues and the department has offered little to no help.
We are no-fee schools, so there's no way that we can find money to pay people that can come and assist the school. But if you doing your own thing, try to beef up the system or requesting any volunteer, should those volunteers experience any injury, the department will stand away and say, you are in your own, take care of your people.
The Western Cape Education Department's Alan Mayer says there is no money to fund permanent security personnel.
The cost of having somebody at the school is a recurring cost because it has staffing implications. In other words, we have to provide the person with medical aid, pension, all of those kind of service. If we employ them as the Western Cape Education Department, as any government department does, there's all of those ancillary costs that gets added to it. So at the end of it, schools may argue with us, but it's going to cost us 150 Rand for a person per day. We're going to have a person at our school for 150 Rand. It doesn't translate into 150 Rand per day. It may translate to something like 350 or 400 Rand when we start adding the medical and the pension and all of those other benefits, to that particular salary package. So it works out hugely expensive.
Isn't the cost worth it to ensure that educators are safe and pupils are safe?
You see, unfortunately, our budget is not endless. And we do have certain constraints, in terms of finances within our organization. As a province, our budget has been consistently cut over the past few years. We also offer, we actually give schools what is called norms and standards funding. So we provide a budget to a school for per learner for a period of a year, and we pay that into the school's account. As part of that particular norms and standards, we put in there something for school maintenance. So in other words, 25% of that budget must be used for school maintenance. And what we have recently done is we've said that 25% of that 25 must actually be used for security purposes.
I think we're good to go.
Equal Education's Khayelitsha Wenana says this is not enough.
You have to understand that schools that exist in Khayelitsha, for instance, are more frequently victims to vandalism, to theft, more than any other schools that are more affluent. So they will experience it more.
During this incident, also captured by CCTV cameras in 2018, 2 armed men casually walked into a primary school in Khayelitsha, entered the staff room and proceeded to rob the teachers of laptops. With no security guard on the premises, the men were able to simply walk out with the stolen merchandise. But not before stealing this teacher they bumped into in the corridor's cell phone, in full view of clearly terrified learners.
Teachers are living in fear. The immediate incident when it happens, the trauma the effect of that incident, but also the fact that when those incidents happen, it's usually to take things or property from the school. So printers, your laptops of teachers, the computers, all the equipment that are very necessary for learning and teaching. So when that is taken away, it takes a long time for them to be replaced, because remember, these are poor schools. It's hard to even get the initial equipment.
The department cannot be solely responsible for safety, argues Mayor.
And so safety is really the business of SAPS. The point I want to make is, it is also about communities taking responsibility for their own communities as well. And how does communities build the kind of structures within a community to ensure that the safety of learners, and particularly during this time, women and girl children as well.
Checkpoint requested an interview with SAPS. They declined, saying the cases you are referring to are still under investigation and we have nothing further to add at this stage. The security issues at the schools is best addressed by the Education Department. A crafty passing of the buck by SAPS and the department. In response to allegations that the department does not care for the mental well-being of teachers who have been victims of crime, Mayor says that is not true.
We have a psychologist for every 20 schools in the province. We've got a social worker. We've got a therapist also within a particular district. We also have learning support teachers within communities. And so our psychologists are available, and we are very responsive. When there's been an incident at the school, we will send the full team of psychologists and social workers to the school to provide trauma counseling. Our turnaround time on that is really phenomenal, and it's a pity that teachers didn't speak of that.
This phenomenal assistance clearly never reached Betu.
It's something like I can say it's a joke.
What's the joke?
The awareness program, because it was, they informed me about him. I must go, and they call it ICAS, it's something like that, or ICAN. But they offered me that kind of session, or their sessions, but it was just for 1 week. How do you provide a counseling session for a week to someone who's being shot, who almost lost their life? The Western Cape Education Department, everything, they have policies. There are many policies, safe schools policies, but those policies are just papers that are lying there, no implementation. They are not taken serious at all. Because what I learned, I discovered teachers, learners, even non-teaching staff are not safe in the school environments.
Next week, we look at attacks on schools during the lockdown. Gauteng and Mpumalanga were hardest hit. See you then, and thanks for watching Checkpoint. I'm Ngepile Mabuse.